And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, joined on this fine Thursday evening. There's a chill in the air, Raj. There's football on my TV. There's a fall TV schedule ahead. Baseball's playoffs are getting ready to get going. I guess training camps are right around the corner, too. But I brought you on the show today to be our football and fall TV movie correspondent. Are you all researched up? Are you ready to go?
So I don't know what that means. You said that to me earlier in the week that there's a fall TV season coming. You mean like
Yeah.
Christmas movies? Like there's holiday movies? Is that what you mean by that? Like
No, I mean yes, but
Thanksgiving
no, no.
movies?
Like
No. Okay.
all like channels tend to put their best content out in the fall.
Okay.
It's when people are coming back from summer vacations, and that's when you run your Emmy nominees and your Oscar nominees. They tend to run around this time too. The
Okay.
summer is usually for the bigger shows, the bigger content, right? That's when
Mm.
you have Game of Thrones ran during the summer. People, you have summer blockbusters, right? Marvel just made $1 billion with Deadpool and stuff. No, in the fall, this is when it's kind of part of my entire run up to the NBA season. It helps get me ready for it. I look ahead at the fall TV schedule. Like right now, Industry is playing right now, and it's the best show on TV. And when I see content that is at that level, that's when I start saying, and then you start to get we've been in the low 90s all week. We've gotten some fall thunderstorms and stuff already. And then again, out here in where I live in Austin, everybody here is getting ready for UT football is opens up this upcoming uh weekend, and then I have my fantasy football draft on Saturday night, and that signals to me, all right, it's time to really start buckling down, time to start really, getting ready for this upcoming season, getting everything lined up and planned and all of that good stuff. And that's why I look forward to the actual shows and movies themselves, but I also just really look forward to this time of year because we are finally out of the the absolute Sahara desert. There's Sahara desert.
Sahara Desert.
What the
Yeah.
hell is Sahara?
Like a safari, maybe.
I don't know. Sahara desert that is, late July, all of August, early September. So I'm stoked. I'm happy to be here.
I mean, it wasn't that. I mean, so I think you're right in most summers, but this summer we got the Olympics. I mean, so there was some water in that Sahara Desert. But
Mhm.
no, I don't recognize any of the TV shows that you mentioned there. I was at the Sparks game yesterday, and they showed Jason Sudeikis. I think I saw him in a movie called RV. He was in a movie called RV, right? Like I think
Uh-huh.
like a long time.
Mhm.
I think I've seen that one.
Produced one of the greatest memes of all time.
Uh,
It's where
not sure.
where the I think it's Jennifer Aniston says to him
Yes.
you're you're getting paid how much for this, and then I'm getting $40,000, and then there's the younger girl who's like, you're getting $40,000, I'm getting $10,000, and then the guy who winds up hilariously, this youngest actor who is in an absolutely ridiculous role there, right,
Right.
winds up being a Marvel character. He was a great addition to the third season. Well, second season of the Bear, and then he got a bigger role here in the third season of the Bear. And somehow became a sex symbol, became a really good looking dude. That guy who says to the younger girl, "You're getting paid." I love that stuff. It's so good.
But yeah, he
It's
was at the Sparks game, and so was Jared Vanderbilt, and I was
Mhm.
pretty upset that the Sparks did not show Jared Vanderbilt on the screen, but they went and showed Jason Sudeikis. So yeah, not up front with all the TV shows and stuff like that. No.
Do you think they tried to show Jared Vanderbilt, but he was actually unavailable to be shown
Oh,
on the
that's not nice. That's not fair.
he made a brief return, look good, and then like
Right.
immediately ran to the locker room.
No,
Um,
he wasn't watching very much. He was very much on his phone. Wasn't very interested in the Encore product, but appreciate him coming out and supporting.
um, no, Sabrina sent that in the Slack, and it made me like guffaw, like just guffaw laughing. It like I could just see you boiling in that,
I was
like it's just
I
like
was so bad.
festering.
I
You're
was so
simmering
pissed.
there on the sideline, just like he's right there. He's an actual Laker. It wasn't at crypto.com, was it? Was it at the crypt?
It was at the crypt. Yes,
It
it
was
was at
at
the
the
crypt.
crypt.
It was at the crypt. And so Jason Sudeikis is sitting like
Well, Sudeikis
two
is a bigger star, so like
then a Laker. He's a bigger in
Raj.
in a basketball environment. Like there's
Yes, very much
no.
so. He was there in a WNBA sweater, Raj. He
Okay,
actually cared about the game that was being played.
Vanderbilt literally plays on the Lakers. Like
He's a
I can't.
much better ambassador to the sport than Jared Vanderbilt, like significantly better. And then also, like he's a star of one of the biggest shows ever that transcends sport and TV and in Ted Lasso. Like that was one of that got people through COVID. Like that was like one of the highlights of that was just unbelievable. But I was like, no, Malcolm, I swear, Malcolm. Sabrina sent me that Slack, and I read it and just went like that was my literal response because I could just totally picture Raj sitting there, happy to be, credentialed for this game, super happy to be involved in all of this stuff. But then also like every so often looking at like, just, are you going to show him? He's right there. He's right.
I couldn't
He
believe
was,
it. I could not believe it. I could not believe it. Just really quickly on that Sparks game. This is how I know. I guess I'm kind of different than other people. I got there like 2.5 hours early, Anthony, just to watch Sabrina Ionescu warm up. Right, and Sabrina Ionescu, gold medal winner, maybe has the best shoes in basketball right now.
yeah.
I asked like 4 security guards, has Sabrina warmed up yet? And like everyone's like, I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, how do you not know Sabrina Ionescu has warmed up yet? And so I see our actual friend Sabrina. Like, has Sabrina warmed up yet? She's like, no, you're good. And I start getting my like, and then she comes out to start warming up. And I asked Sabrina, like, can I sit courtside? And she's like, yeah, you can sit courtside. I was like, are you sure they're not gonna pull me away or anything like that? It's like, no, you're good. So I'm literally like Sabrina's warming up right in front of me. I'm sitting courtside. I'm like looking around, making sure no one's about to like, hey, pull my shirt from behind and like move me. so, so I'm sitting there just watching, and Sabrina comes and sits next to me, and I feel like I'm too close, Anthony, because I can hear like Sabrina and her trainer talk. And I'm like, do other media members know they can do this? She's like, oh yeah. They're all like in the Chick-Hearn press room. So
all right,
that was
I'll
just
say this.
so amazing.
I'll say
It
this,
was so
like in
amazing.
your defense, like to like the concern that you feel like you are where you shouldn't be. Like I remember the first time I was credentialed ever in my life, and it was to a Dodgers spring training game.
Mhm.
And yeah, same thing. Like it was, so spring training is actually like, if you guys are baseball fans, is
Mhm.
actually like it's a really fun environment to go to because you just walk around the facility and there's Kershaw pitching over there. There's well, back then I like my favorite. I have a great Puig story from that. And so anyway, I was there for a game, and it was like after the game was done, or no, was it before? I think it was before. You get there a little early and you walk up, and there were like two giants, like these security guards were actually bigger than the baseball players in the NBA, right? Like
Mhm.
everybody that you're covering is so big. Baseball is down to, more my eye level, but the security guards for some reason were just huge people. And I was like, walking into the facility because we had a scrum with Dave Roberts, and I'm holding the door, and as I'm like holding the door, in walks like 5 players, like,
Mhm.
and like they're like I'm holding the door open for them, and I'm getting ready to go in, and like for some, like as I how you like open the door and you hold it and you kind of face away from the doorway that you're about to enter into. And the
Mhm.
whole time I'm doing that, I'm looking at the security guard and I'm just like, I swear, like I'm like putting my credential in a place where they can see it. Cause yeah, it does, like when you're allowed to walk into the same building through the same entrance as the people that you're there covering, after a lifetime of being on the other side of the rope for all the games that I attended, I understand where that's coming from.
Yeah, it's
um I
incredible feeling.
where you lose me is getting annoyed that Jared Vanderbilt wasn't put on the big screen. Like
That's
that's
it's unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Today on the show, we're going to be talking about the off season that was basically that I would be absolutely shocked if the Lakers did anything between now and training camp that would, materially change the roster as it exists right now. So we're gonna, look back on the offseason that was, look ahead to the season that might be, and I'm gonna give, Raj. I'm gonna lean on his optimism to, for chunks of this show. I'm gonna pick at that offseason a little bit, but I also, as I was like setting up the show, something struck me that I think is going to be completely unique in the LeBron James era, not just for the Lakers, but for any LeBron James team ever. Um, in that, like, I think this is the lowest expectations for a LeBron James season has ever been.
Mm.
And I think that can be somewhat freeing. So we'll talk about that on the back end of the show. I also, originally, Raj and I were going to do a season re-preview of Jared Vanderbilt and Jalen Hood-Schifino. So he has a bunch of Jalen Hood-Schifino sats anyway. So maybe at the very, very end of the show, if we have time, we'll get to those. But Raj, I want to ask you, we are now very far removed
Yeah.
from an off season that produced Dalton Connect and produced Bronny James, that saw Torian Prince and Spencer Dinwiddie walk out the door.
Mhm.
Um, those I think were the only, real changes to the roster right now
Right.
that are really going to matter. So like we are now, a month and some change removed from how all of that played out. Where do you stand on the off season before we get to like expectations for this upcoming season? Where do you stand on this off season?
It, yeah, this is kind of, I guess, what I expected. I mean, I tweeted out very early into free agency and trades and all that this summer that the team was gonna sell us on Vando and Gabe returning, being the sells, along with Max Christie getting
When you
minutes.
sent that, did you think that was real or were you being kind of snide?
I was dead serious. I totally thought that was what
Okay.
they were gonna sell us, and that is what they sold us. And I think, Anthony, there's a way to sell that, like 3, 4 weeks or maybe a month before the season ends. But selling that after all the moves are made, I think it just comes off a little hollow. But like I think this is it's a solid team. It's not a favorite in the Western Conference. Obviously, the ending to Denver puts a mark on kind of the roster, and you see all the playoff performers. But when you just judge this on just a regular season team, we just watched LeBron and AD. LeBron looked like he has very little decline in him coming, even for the following season. I thought AD looked the healthiest that he's had in the Olympics. He looked mobile. He looked like he lost a little bit of weight. He looked very athletic. He was very dominant defensively. So, like, you put those two together, I still feel like the Lakers have two top 10 players. And just regular season wise, if you can separate, if you can compartmentalize kind of D'Lo in the playoffs versus regular season, right? Vando in the playoffs versus regular season. If you can compartmentalize those, I think this is just like a solid team. It's a team that can fight for a top 8 spot in the West. Where that is, I'm not sure. I think there's obviously levels in the Western Conference, but it's just a solid team. If LeBron and AD stay healthy, they both played over 70 games last year. That's what you kind of have to hope and pray on, that that occurs again. But they're in a tough spot where, like, they're gonna have to attach a lot of first round equity to move players, and they obviously, I didn't believe they wanted to do that. Chris Haynes tweeted out they have they'll be armed with 3 first round picks this summer. I never bought into that. I love Dalton Connect, and I think most Laker fans do. Well, when you love Dalton Connect, that strips you down to 2 first rounders. And obviously, I think you've written about this, that Rob likes to go into the season with at least 1. So really, you're armed with 1 first round pick, and that's not bringing much to the table. But I think it's a solid team. I don't know if that's being too optimistic. I think most people want to shove everyone off the boat. I'm like, this is a solid team that's running this boat. Like, I think the boat can move forward in the ocean. It just, I'm not sure it'll get all the way to its destination.
So I agree that I think people are a little too low on this roster as it stands right now. There's plenty of talent, you know.
Right.
The problem is that, like, we know this isn't the championship team, right? And like, we know, like, I think we can pretty much definitively say, like, the Lakers are, they aimed for the middle this offseason. They didn't swing for the fences in a way that you would try, like, if that you would if you were being real in your, if you had real belief in the LeBron AD combination, you wouldn't just kind of tap out, in the way that I think the Lakers did here. And I think it started with draft night, and in the run up to the draft, all of the noise that I was hearing was that the Lakers were getting ready to use their pick on a player and keep that player. And once I heard that, that signaled the kind of offseason that they were going to have. Because like you said, right, if you aren't going to trade the one pick that you have at your disposal before it becomes a player, that's when, it's funny. A pick is, there are like moments where it is least and most valuable, right?
Right.
In its own calendar year, and it's most valuable the moment before you select
It's
a player,
mm-hmm.
and it is least valuable the moment after you select a player.
Right.
And so, once I was hearing that they were getting ready to to draft a player and keep that player, I started saying, well, teams are going to ask for 2 picks, and
Right.
that Rob isn't going to give up 2 picks and go into a season with 0 first round equity at his disposal. So I was like, I mean, unless the Lakers work the margins in ways that on the trade market in ways that we haven't seen since the Rui trade, this is probably going to be a really quiet offseason. And I was really curious what Lakers fans' reaction to it would be. And that was something that I was charting in like real time, was
Mm-hmm.
how Lakers fans and especially like people covering the team, like, we're in a really cool spot right now where I don't think whether it's local media or shows like ours feels that it owes the Lakers anything at this point. Like, there was a time where I thought like Lakers Nation was a lot more like conscious of the things that it will or will not say about the Lakers in their analysis, right? And Trevor has been really hard on the Lakers. Obviously, it was a little different with LFR because, for a little while they were kind of an extension of the Lakers, so there were places that they couldn't go. But I've thought, since the Lakers made one of the more befuddling decisions of the offseason, that I've really been curious, or I was curious what their thoughts on this season would be. And even there is some knocks that I don't think would have. And then the local beat, we're at a place where like Jovan
Mm-hmm.
is comfortable enough to take his swings, and Dan is comfortable enough to take his swings, and so on and so forth. Whereas like growing up, the local beat was very much an extension of Lakers PR, right? Kevin Ding was like Kobe's like uh biographer while while he was like covering him, and then eventually, parlayed that into a gig with the Lakers. And it was like it was a different time, but I
Sure.
was really curious, and I was paying very close attention in real time to like how everybody would react to this. And I was really pleased to see that people were like, this is bullshit. Like and I'm sorry, it was like we can explain some of the decisions and
Right.
explain how they got here and all of that stuff, but to basically sit out an off season in which LeBron and AD play the way that they played in that Olympic setting, like if I were just a fan, I don't know how well I would have handled that either.
I understand, being pissed, and I think a lot of this is, and I can, Anthony, you hate when I say this, but I think that Denver series is a lot closer than people remember. But in any
Sure.
case, I think
But
losing to
if
this.
that's the case, like I'll zig where you think I'm going to zag, because normally I would
Okay,
just laugh at that comment.
okay, I know.
If that's the case, and you think the Lakers are actually closer to the Denver Nuggets got worse this year, so the Lakers technically had an opportunity
Sure.
to potentially leapfrog them, and again sat out the offseason.
Right. And I think part of this, my only, like, again, I'm not as, because I like the roster more than I think, most people did. And I kind of like the strengths of it than others, thought they had a lot more weaknesses. But my one kind of gripe is not moving D'Lo. I thought, once D'Lo opted
Yeah.
in, I thought that was a gift to the
Oh my gosh.
franchise. And you needed some contingency plan created once he opted in. And they just didn't. And it even, like, D'Lo's quotes once he opted in was, "I'm excited to work with JJ Redick," which tells you that there wasn't really a lot of option for a lot of moves to like get him off the team. But like I don't know, Anthony. I look at the like summer and I look at the guys available. I just don't know anyone who is available for even 3 first-round picks or 2 first-round picks. I don't know if you have names. Lauri Markkanen is like the mainstay this summer, and there was some haggling with the Warriors. But obviously that never came through. The other guy was Donovan Mitchell. I don't believe he was ever actually available. And then when you get past those two, like, it's just really tough. But I get it from your point and from others as well. Like, you have to do something, right? You can't just let everybody opt in and then keep them all on the team. Like, you can't bring back the
Yeah.
exact same roster with Dalton Connect and Bronny, who was
We just
cooking
saw
tea.
Lonnie Walker take an Exhibit 10 deal today.
Insane.
He's
Absolutely
better
absurd.
than the last third of our roster.
Right. Yeah. Even though,
Our man, you hear me? Like you know how annoyed or like how like a certain way I feel if I'm referring to the Lakers as our, we, my.
sure. Yeah. Lonnie Walker, oh my God, in Boston is just a highway
Yeah, it
robbery.
hurts
But I
the
mean,
soul.
Bronny cooking THT the other day, and like, I don't think Bronny will be ready. And I think a problem that we discussed a lot on this pod is there's a lot of players on this team that are rostered that aren't ready to play NBA minutes. And
Yeah.
like, they are full NBA contracts. And I think that's, part of a bigger issue in terms of the contracts that were dealt out a year ago. But it feels like, again, we're going to kick this can down the road and, see what the team is in February. I understand that's very upsetting. I never thought, Anthony, there was any big move coming. And like, I guess I've kind of been accepting of like, this was going to be the result back before free agency even started.
So now with that said,
Right.
how do you feel about the because I again see this is where I know that I can be maddening to listen to and to talk to, because I do think that this offseason was a farce. Like I do think
Sure.
that it's a giant black mark on the organization that they weren't even able to open a roster spot.
Sure.
Like in a front office that like can't find it in themselves to open a roster spot is insane. That is absolutely mind numbing. Especially when you look at some of the guys who went for minimum contracts this summer. Um, you had you were in a 2-dog race for Klay Thompson and
Oh,
weren't able to
man.
seal the deal there, and so I look at I when I step back and I look at it, I say like, yeah, that sucked in the moment. It was like, yeah, that
That
sucks.
was
But
terrible.
then but like, and I find myself saying this a lot about Rob, in that like a lot of these decisions make sense when they are isolated in their own vacuum sealed bags,
Mhm.
because not trading two firsts for Jeremy Grant makes sense if you only have two firsts to be able to trade, right?
Mhm.
Not trading a first for Dorian Finney-Smith when his market is below that of a first. Not trading a first for Cam Johnson when his market is that of below that of a first rounder for him. Not trading two first for Wendell Carter Jr. Not trading two first for Walker Kessler. Like, those decisions by themselves make sense. When you
Sure.
when you look at them, when I say that out loud, it makes sense. Um, that said, context always matters, right? And also, like, I know you don't watch the show, but in Industry, in the most recent episode of Industry, or was it the last one? I forget. It was either two or three. But there's a line in there. It was like, perception is reality. They're having this like kind of internal debate. This company that is at the kind of the center point of this TV show. There's
Mhm.
this debate about like, and it's a circular debate about like, we decide what is reality, but then they're also slaves to perception, which they consider reality. And
Mhm.
I'm more of the mindset that like, perception is in its own way reality. And when the Lakers, like, they already, the narrative about this front office is that it is heavily nepotistic, it is heavily cronyistic, it is inexperienced, it is inefficient, it is simultaneously too thin, and also there are too many cooks in the kitchen. It's a weird combination, and if that's the perception of this front office, and then for them to not be able to take care of something so pedestrian as move Christian Wood, move Jackson Hayes, move Cam Reddish, get him off of your roster so that you can, make even a marginal upgrade, because
Yeah.
they don't need Cam Reddish this year. He's not an NBA player. So like, um,
I,
that's where like I find myself, even as I say, here's why this kind of makes some sense in this moment, and this kind of makes some sense here. This kind of like, I still wind up coming back to, you have to at some point prove people wrong.
so I think there's a couple things that I've kind of just settled with. The Lakers aren't in win now mode. Like, uh, we forget about this, but like the Dan Hurley situation. Like, I don't believe you go out and get Dan Hurley
Or
if you're
JJ
in.
Redick for that matter.
Sure, but obviously Dan Hurley, I don't know. Again, I'm not behind the scenes, but like, going after Dan Hurley is not what an organization does when they're in title or bust mode. That those just aren't actions that fit those words. JJ Redick as well, right? First time head coach. You also don't preach player development, right? If your goal is winning a title, and they just hired Ty Abbott, who we'll see how he does. Um, I just don't think like their words have matched that. And you've mentioned Cam Reddish, you mentioned Christian Wood, you mentioned Jackson Hayes, and I'm not giving bail to Rob Pelinka because I don't have that much money in my bank account. But like, I believe like I think like other teams also know those aren't NBA players, right? So those are assets you have to give up. And I say this all the time. You go through what the Lakers quote unquote assets are, right? After you get through those two first round picks, 20, I believe it's 2020, 2031 now, and 2027. I forget. But after that, you're not trading LeBron, you're not trading AD. So next up is Austin Reeves. And I think the bar for what the Lakers would move Austin Reeves is very high. And I
Yep.
get that. I understand that, right? That's a win. It's a win for the organization. You just talked about perception that really improved their perception, I believe, around the league in terms of, oh man, look at what they found, right? And got him on the contract that they did.
I mean,
I think that's the
his
first thing.
agency steered him to them. I don't think they knew when they got him what he would even turn into.
Sure. I mean, but you get credit for what the results are. And so I think that's the first thing teams ask for is like, we want Austin Reeves. And I'm sure I see DeJounte Murray, asked about in the chat. Like, I'm sure that was the first thing that was asked about for him as well. I think when you get to that point, the Lakers have moved to, we're not giving up assets. We're in title mode, but it's funny, Anthony, because the whole summer was this friendship or broship with Steph Curry and LeBron, both of
Yeah.
them, hugging and doing all this stuff and kind of flirting with playing with each other on their respective teams. They're in weirdly similar situations where both of them have both their franchises have looked and were like, this guy's not leaving. So we can, play the long game. We can play it safe. We can go get a DeAnthony Melton. We can lose Clay for nothing and kind of fill around some, lesser piece that hopefully, get up to a sum of Clay Thompson. And the Lakers kind of did the same thing. Like LeBron James is not leaving. We are rostering his son for 4 years. His son's on the team for 4 years on a 4-year contract. We don't have to take big risks, and I think that's where they're at. It's a sad place when you put it that way. It's dark, but they're like, hey, if we we'll see if we can contend. We're not going all in. We're not going we're not trading all our future capital on LeBron's 42 or 43, whatever it is. We're gonna stick with this team. They won 47 games last year. Hopefully JJ Redick's modern principles and schemes and stuff like that can push us over 50 wins, and that's where I'm at. I've kind of been at the acceptance stage of that for a very long time, but I could tell you're still very more upset about this.
I no, I think I've also accepted it. It's funny that you use that line here, the acceptance phase. You know what phase, like which process you're alluding to there is when somebody dies. So like you're comparing this offseason to losing somebody you care about enough to mourn.
I can't I can't prove this, Anthony. Like there's no obviously absolute research, but like a part of me died on that Jamal Murray game 2 jump shot. Like I still haven't recovered from that. There's still a part of my soul that's within that shot. But yeah, I've been in this phase for a while, which is why I'm really excited about Dalton Connect, and I get more hyped up speaking about Jalen Ochefino and all these young prospects, because I think that's kind of, I'm not saying that's the point of this season of developing young guys, but just in terms of where we, no.
If
Okay,
the point is hoping you develop Jalen Ochefino and hoping you turn Maxwell Lewis into an NBA, like good God, dude, because those guys aren't like that. I don't see the path for them.
Sure.
I just I don't see it with Maxwell Lewis. I know people like him a lot more because his highlights look really good, but in aggregate, I've just not been very impressed. And then Jalen Ochefino is. We don't have to go there. We'll get to him later. I do want to allow you, and I won't nitpick now.
Okay.
But if let's say I am friend X, actually, I think our mutual friend Sabrina is actually a good stand-in here.
Okay.
So let's just say somebody like Sabrina, who cares about basketball, who cares about the Lakers, also a smart person, so you can't pull an over on her.
Sure.
But if imagine that I am Sabrina. You guys used to have a show together. I want you to sell me, Sabrina, on why you should be optimistic about the 2024-2025 Los Angeles Lakers.
So I think there's a few things, and
the deep sigh before.
Yeah.
Well,
well, I mean, so obviously I can get into my optimistic bag. That's not a very difficult thing for me to get to. But I mean, I think there are Kyrie level. But I think there are legitimate reasons. Again, I said this to start the show. I think there was a way, Anthony, to sell this. Now, not saying the fans would have accepted it, they would have received it in the best manner, but I do think there was a way to sell, hey, look, we won 47 games. LeBron and AD showed signs of staying healthy. They just both went through an Olympic run, right? We believe that, Max Christie was a guy that should have played, that should have been in rotation. We believe in him. We just signed him to a 2 or 3 year deal. He's a guy that we're expecting big things out of. And look, our biggest free agent signing from a year ago missed the whole year. A guy we gave the full MLA to. We'll see how his health looks now, but Gabe Vincent is Gabe Vincent was a legit NBA player. Like whatever you just mentioned Cam Reddish, the other guys on the minimums on our team. Gabe Vincent earned a $10 million plus contract, and then Jared Vanderbilt was a guy they thought was a key starter piece. He started the first preseason game that year. We were thinking about doing some Vando stuff. I look at for Vando's numbers, I kind of keep those into 2022, 2023, because last year I don't really have a sense for how healthy he was. But like that starting lineup with Vando in there was a plus 20 in 7 games. LeBron, AD, and Vando were a plus 18 in 11 games. And those were like high stake games as going into the playoffs. So I think that's where the optimism comes from. You have a team that's hopefully deeper because of the health to other guys. And again, it's contingent on LeBron and AD's health. So I'm going to sell you. It's on that. It's on the relationship that JJ Redick and LeBron hopefully have previously, and they can kind of extend that to the court. JJ Redick's principles, right? Darvin Ham's kind of old man rotations theoretically should be gone with JJ, out the helm. That's how I would sell it. Again, like I think the West is in a pretty interesting spot. Like I think Denver got worse, but Minnesota should be better with just continued ascension from Anthony Edwards. OKC robbed Alex Caruso from the Chicago Bulls somehow, and they're even better. Even got Hartenstein somehow this summer as well. Again, not giving up any first rounders in these deals. I don't know how Sam Presti is pulling this off.
Hartenstein was a free agent, but
free agent, right? But I mean, they added Hartenstein and Caruso and didn't give a first round pick for that this summer. It's just an absurd level of GMing that's going on over there. But that's how I would sell it. I think that's the only way you can sell it, and I think that's how Rob and the whole front. I don't see how the sausage is made, but I'm guessing like that's how they're selling this to themselves and to others. But if you believe in LeBron and AD and you believe that they can still kind of uplift a average to slightly maybe above average, I don't know, like supporting cast regular season wise, not playoff wise, but like just regular season wise, then you should be still in that 45 to 50 win range, which you look at Phoenix, they're a strange bunch as well. You look at Memphis, you don't know what, how they will look after John Morant missed the whole year last year. Like there's a bunch of West teams. The Clippers got worse. They lost Paul George, right? And they kind of replaced him with a bunch of role guys. You just go down the West. There's no real like dominant team other than OKC and maybe Minnesota, who again, 2 teams that we actually play really well against. Like we have really favorable matchups against both of those teams. OKC, well, now that they got Hartenstein, has a little bit more of a beefy front line, but Minnesota as well as a team that we played pretty well. That's my sell, Anthony. I don't know if you bought it, but like that's the sell that I have.
Do you think Sabrina would buy that?
No.
I think you're right. Here's my selling point for it. And I talked about it at the top of the show. Here's how I would sell the show.
Okay.
Nothing can ruin things quite like expectations. Right? Like okay. I at this point in my life, I know you aren't a movie guy. But if a movie is coming out that I'm really, really excited about, I try to actively avoid hype, trailers. Like I'll watch one trailer, like the very first trailer that comes out, to get me like a proper level of pump for whatever it is, whatever movie or show it is. After that, I shut down. I don't listen to reviews. I don't read reviews. I take in the content for however, in my own way, because the last thing that I want is for, the internet to tell me, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. This is great. And set my expectations way up here at an impossible place and be let down by something that could possibly still be good. Right.
Okay.
And I think for the entirety of LeBron James's 20 going on 21 year career,
Mm-hmm.
Like every single summer leading into the season is that incessant hype train. Oh my God, this is going to be this year. This is going to be the year. You have LeBron on your team. You have a chance to win a championship. This is the first time that isn't the case. I don't think the Lakers, as they're currently built, have a chance to win a championship. And I'm really kind of excited and I'm really curious going into this season for the experience of, you know what? Let's just see how it goes. Like, like I don't, my expectations aren't very high. That means they're going to be nice and easy to clear. And I'm really like, my expectations for Rob at the deadline are going to be in the absolute basement, crust of the earth kind of stuff. Like,
Hmm.
I'm really looking forward to, and I think this is something Sabrina could buy. Like, I should have just had Sabrina on the show with you today. My bad, Sabrina.
Right.
But like, I think this is something that, like, even this is a very cynical take. So I think cynical Lakers fans could actually buy into this kind of concept where, you know what? It has been a while. It has been a minute since, like, we've entered the season, and it's just like, you know what? Screw it. Let's see how it goes. It's just like I used to well, I still play golf, but I think a better analogy this is pool. Have you ever played pool? You've played pool
Yeah,
before, right?
I've
So, yeah.
played I've played
Okay.
pool. Yes.
All right. Well, because I figured you hadn't played golf, but I figured you have played pool.
I've played
And
like mini golf at like,
not quite the same.
okay.
But I mean, I guess it would kind of work there too. But my buddies and I would have a phrase if we had a
Mm,
shot that we just did not know what to do with. You you're taking a shot and you're solids and there's a stripe right in front of the cue ball and you have to go off of 3 walls to maybe barely glance your ball to avoid a scratch. Um, and I used to just say it. Like, I would look at my buddy Matt, actually my now brother-in-law. I'd look at Matt and be like, hit and hope, you know, just
uh-huh.
we'll see where this goes. I'm going to hit it in this general direction at this amount of velocity or whatever, and I'm going to see how this thing goes. And I kind of feel like this Lakers season is going to be a hit it and hope type of season. It's like, all right, let's see.
Yeah.
And you're still starting at a pretty good spot because you still have LeBron, you still have AD, so it's not going to be like a shitty season. Yeah, it like
Yeah.
unless they get hurt. But like
Right.
like so long as they stay healthy, you're in for it, like at least a decent season. Uh, JJ Redick will at least be an interesting coach to pay attention to. Like
Hmm.
there are aspects of this year that just like there's possibilities with every shot that you hit and pull, so long as you don't play with slop.
Right.
Like so long as slop counts in the game that you're playing. Like it's just you hit it and hope. And I'm gonna walk into the season just kind of like, you know what? Whatever. And I think that's an indictment to the front office still, that we've arrived here where I'm entering a season with such low expectations. But still, for my own viewing pleasure, for my own fan experience, I think the healthiest way to go into the season is fuck it, whatever. Let's try it.
So so it's funny because I think that not the exact mentality of that, but just the thinking of, hey, we're just gonna go in the season, let's see what we are. I think that's a lot of the West. I mean, look at the West, the Clippers, the Suns, the Pelicans, the Kings, the Warriors. These are all teams, in my opinion, that are going into the season like, let's just see what we are, right? We didn't make any real super, like the Pelicans obviously traded for DeJounte Murray, but they didn't trade Brandon Ingram. So they're still like, hey, let's just see how good we are with this team. The Clippers, lost Paul George and just kind of filled around him. The Mavs just made the finals, right? But again, like that's a team that made really a late run, and Luka and Kyrie were nuts in the playoffs, but they lost some key pieces in Derek Jones. I think that's how a lot of the West is. Denver, I think they got worse, and I think a lot of people believe they did as well, but they still believe they're like in the contender status. I think Minnesota's right there, OKC as well. Then you have to give Dallas the credit for making the finals, but after that, Anthony, it's pretty much a toss up really in the West. It's really like who stays the healthiest, and then can you make a move at the deadline? But I think the way that you just described all that, which again is sad when, in my opinion, you still have the two of the top 10 players in the league. Like to me, your bar should be a little bit higher than let's just see, let's just see what we
Like
are.
I feel like I'm approaching this season in much of the same way that I approach parenting.
Okay.
where you wake up and you give it the good old college try. Some days you're better than others. Some days are great. Like the best days of being a parent are the best days that you will, that I have ever experienced, right?
Right.
Like it's really cool watching this phase of Avery and Miles' life where they are now like working off of each other.
Mhm.
And Avery has like really accepted the responsibility of being a big sister. And it's something that like Jen and I really, really focused on is like, you know, leading by example, being kind, sharing, loving, and
Mhm.
all those things. And like when we see all of that work come to fruition, it is some of the best days I have ever had, and
Right.
it's like the shortest, briefest glimpses into like bliss.
Mhm.
And then like you'll also have days where it's like 6 in the morning and you could just tell, you look at both of them, you're like, oh no.
It's gonna be one of those
this
days.
is this is this is gonna suck. And then you just got to get to the end of that day and then hope that the next day is better. And I
Right.
really feel like that's essentially how I'm going to approach this season, where I like, because my expectations are so low, those games were like, I remember last year, because we got to this point, I think, with the team last year because of
Mhm.
Darvin's coaching. And I don't think enough has been made of like, well, national people would say that too much has been made about how bad Darvin was, and Lakers fans would say that you can never make enough of how bad Darvin was. I just did the Rui season re-preview, and it is brutal to try to contextualize,
Yeah.
his either hitting or falling short of expectations, and it all had to do with Darvin. But like, I think we reached that point kind of last year. And especially you see this when like there was the Celtics, it was last year, right? There was the game against the Celtics that LeBron and
Mhm.
AD both sat, and you entered that
Austin
game,
and
you're
D'Lo.
like, whatever,
I
you know, let's see
I
how this goes. It's still the Celtics, and it's still gonna suck if their home crowd is going nuts, because it's still gonna like, I still hate losing to the Celtics under any kind of circumstances. But then what did the Lakers do?
They
They
won.
beat
Mhm.
them. They beat them, and it was incredible, and it was probably the high point of last season, you know? Like, it was like it's like pretty high up there for just
Mhm.
in terms of just raw enjoyment of basketball, or
Sure.
raw enjoyment, not even of basketball, because the basketball wasn't great. But like raw enjoyment of the Lakers and of being a Lakers fan, and in that moment enjoying, or the 20 something point comeback against the Clippers is another one where you reach a certain point in games where you just go, well, maybe get it to 10, right? That's your line. Get it to 10 before the end of the quarter, and maybe, just
Right.
maybe, right? Um and I think like that's essentially what I'm going to be looking for there. And there's going to be games that, like games against OKC probably going to suck.
Like,
Games, they're like games against Boston this year, probably going to suck. Um, that, going in, you wake up, you're like, all right, let's just try to get through this one. And maybe you're surprised. Maybe the Lakers go out and do some, really enjoy. And it makes those moments, having those experience, those expectations at this lowered spot, might actually make for a more healthy fandom this year than there has been the last, like, basically since LeBron got here.
so that Boston game was fun, but I do not want a season where that is like I'm going into every game and we are that much of an underdog and we have to pull out from that
Yeah.
type of game. Also, Anthony, what's the difference between, because to me, I like, just as a fan, I'd like to get something from a season, right? Like I always say, like one of my words is build, right? And I remember during the Russ season, I was like, we should try to build something. Everyone's like, we're 10 games out from the playoffs. Why are you watching these games? But like you had to try to build something in those games and try to get some young talent. And I thought from that season came out Austin Reeves, right? Austin was part of the Russ season. He was part
Mhm.
of that hellish, year, but he came out from that. And I think we're kind of getting the fruits from that season. What's the difference between what you just said there and watching for like Dalton Connect's development or watching for Max Christie's development,
No,
right? Like that's
I think those two things go hand in hand,
right.
100%.
Right. So
Like,
so
I'll
I
be
think
able
like
to, like, without like, because essentially, Raj, the reason I don't know how many of you guys who like have actually been here with me and my content, for a decade. But like, I look back on like the years that the Lakers needed to lose as much as possible to be able to keep their picks, right? Remember those years? And I was like,
Yeah, of course.
and back then it was Harrison and Gary and Ben and Matt and me, right? We created this team tank thing because Twitter at that time and all of the local media were adamantly against trying to lose for the sake of keeping your picks.
Sure.
And boy, people hated like traditional media hated us for
I
our
remember
stances.
this.
I was literally there were like we would do recaps in games that they lost, and we'd say, "Oh boy, hell of a loss, hell of a like." And if they won, it was like we'd let that one slip away. We leaned all the way into the bit, and it was so much fun just to like just have fun with the season, and like I think over the last, basically since LeBron got to the Lakers, that's when my content started growing. A lot more people started showing up to this stuff. And ever since LeBron got here, everything that all of my analysis has come from a standpoint of this has to be, this is title or bust. You have LeBron
Sure.
in his prime. The expectations is win and win at all costs. And this will be the first time in this LeBron James era where I think it'll actually be pretty refreshing for this channel where like I can maybe just sit back and enjoy a win more than I maybe did in years prior where before it was like you had to stack as many wins and the wins did like it was almost more of a relief that you didn't lose when you won basketball games for the last 6-7 years. This year it'll be like, hey, that was fun. That was good, right? That was good. And like I'm actually looking forward to that kind of an experience because it allows you to also, you know, chart Dalton's, growth over the course of the season. Chart Jalen Hood-Schifino like maybe appearing like an NBA player once a week or so. Like it'll be
All right.
nice to watch, it'll be nice to watch and be able to focus on those things and not have to like relentlessly pay hyper focused attention to not just what the Lakers are doing in this game, but how it stacks up to what else is going on around the league where everybody is going for that goal at the end of the rainbow.
Well, the last time this happened was LeBron's first season, right? He came and he played with Lonzo, Kyle Kuzma, Brandon Ingram, and they tore through expectations, right? That was a young team. They were going to see what it was. They were the 4 seed on Christmas. I believe they just beat the KD Warriors, and that was super fun. That was super enjoyable. That was one of the most fun basketball that I remember watching and be able to just break down and see. And again, it was just watching young guys kind of flourish around, the best player in the league. I don't think this team will have that same energy. Like I see where you're at right now. I think you've watched this team too much to move from a place of from being upset to now just accepting mediocrity from a roster that you've seen. And I can't get there. I'll be very surprised if a lot of Laker fans do. I just cannot get there to where if the Lakers are 10-10, everyone's like, hey, we got 10 wins, like or enjoying the 10 wins. I can't see it. But I think that was the last time was in 2018, right? Every year after that, it was LeBron and AD, which obviously shot the expectations up, especially with Russell Westbrook coming and what people thought that would be, and the moves following. But yeah, I can't get to a place where I'm watching a team that has LeBron and AD on it, healthy presumably, just happy they're in the race. I can't get there personally. Like if you're gonna do that, then just go full on and rebuild. Like I cannot get to that place with LeBron and AD on the team. I just can't. There's no way I'm gonna be just happy go lucky because they won 1 out of 4 and I was expecting them to win 4 in a row.
Well, I mean, I think there's a gap between what you're talking about, what I'm talking about,
Oh, I
right?
see. Okay. Yes.
Like
Yes.
I still expect them to make the playoffs, and if they don't make the
Okay.
playoffs, it'll be a significant disappointment, right?
Okay. Right. Right. Right.
Like I'm still going to be capable of being disappointed in
Right. Right. Right.
outcomes and process and stuff like that. But like the way that I would compare, and again, you're probably not the person to make this comparison too, but like every show in its run has, a season or so or a season or two happen where like it was at one point the show was up here, and then eventually like the show settles down into more mediocre into more mediocre into more mediocrity. um and I still watch. I have to complete TV shows and stuff, or like I'll go back. So last year, like Walking Dead was like this for me, right? And I think this is something that a lot of people watching can relate to. But Walking Dead was a phenomenon. Like it was everywhere. It was the biggest show in the country by a mile. And for me, when they killed a certain character, um, that's when I really saw the show start to slip. And then like I still watched it for a couple seasons, but it clearly wasn't the same show. It didn't reach those same heights anymore, and it was just like it was a bummer watching it live, right? And obviously you can't watch a sport this way because you can't quite go back after like going on hiatus. But I walked away from the show for a bit, and then it got to like Netflix picked it up, and I basically once they picked up the show, I was like, well, I never finished this. Let's go back and let's see how this goes. And I entered watching those last couple seasons with expectations in the actual dumpster. I had seen this show fall off, and I had seen it get really monotonous, and I was just like, you know what? Let's just see how this goes. And it certainly helped that Walking Dead picked up in its last couple seasons, but also even hadn't it picked up, like had it not picked up, I would have been like, you know what? I'm still glad I finished it. And it did, and like every so often there'd be an episode or there'd be a scene or there'd be like something would happen that would remind me of like the good old Walking Dead days. And I kind of think that this is how this season is going to be for me, where I've seen this. I know what highs the Lakers were capable of that championship season. You guys
Hmm.
heard me. You guys heard the rant that I unleashed when somebody questioned the bubble title. That championship means a lot to me personally because of what we as a society were going through. We Lakers fans went through that season, and what I was going through personally at the time. And so I know like what kind of highs the Lakers are capable of. And every so often this year, because they have LeBron, because they have AD, and because I think they have decent talent around them, they'll like show a glimpse, and it'll be like, ah, man, that was fun.
That,
Those were the good old days. And
it,
then this season is going to end, and they'll probably finish, I don't know, if it depends on what they do at the deadline, but if everything stays intact to the end of the season, they'll win close to 50 games. They'll, fight and scratch and claw through the play in and maybe play a playoff round. And then at the end of that, I'll be like, all right, that happened. It's time for a reset. It's time to like stare this in the face and understand what this is actually where things actually sit.
really quickly, how many seasons was Walking Dead?
A lot, man. It ran a while. And actually it's still going because they have like spin-offs and stuff like that. But it was like 8 seasons. Like
8 seasons. Wow,
might have been
I was just
more.
not. I was never into zombies, so I never watched it. I think that's Anthony. What
11
you
seasons.
11?
Whew.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would never. Haven't seen an episode, but but I think what you're saying is that makes it worse to me. Like I would feel
Oh, for
worse if I can
sure.
see glimpses of it, and forgot what movie it was, but Kevin Garnett has that line. It's like, why would you show it to me if I can't have it? Like,
Yeah.
why would I see the glimpses and then just let them just be glimpses? That makes it a much worse experience for me. I do not want to go through another season where we like stay at the 7-8 seed and then we are the most dangerous 8-7 seed ever because we are a
Yeah.
set because we have LeBron and AD. And then again, because we don't have home court and all that, and we're out again in the first round. Like that's a more miserable experience for me. I'm not saying I want LeBron and AD to get hurt. I'm not saying I want to miss the playoffs, but the romanticization of that is just does not hit me the same. That sounds like a very miserable experience for me to watch that whole season
Well,
and then go out again in the first round like without any expectations of winning a round. It just that sounds worse. That's worse to me than the other options.
one of my favorite cliches or one of my favorite lines, I don't even know where it's from, is show me a cynic and I'll show you an idealist who lived long enough, right? And I
Mm.
feel like you're still very idealistic about this stuff. And at this point, I am, like, in part because of how much I know about the stuff and watching the sausage get made and all that stuff. Like, I'm very cynical about this, and I'm just like, I'm just gonna enjoy it for what it is, and like, basically, you know what, fuck it, I'll say it. I'm just waiting for Genie and the Bus family to sell. Like,
Oof.
they can't compete in this modern world with pockets as deep as their competition is. They can't. They can't compete so long as Jeannie has the blind spot that she has for Rob and for Kurt and for Linda. Like, I'm sorry, that stuff was fine in the 80s and maybe a little bit in the early 2000s. And then Dr. Bus died. And ever since Dr. Bus got sick, from then to now, like, being a Lakers fan has been far more frustrating than good. And I don't think that's at all a coincidence. And so, like, until, like, essentially until Genie and that whole cabal is gone, I have way less interest as a fan. Like, I'll still cover them. I'll still analyze them to the nth degree and cover them in the way that I can, because because I owe it to the audience and all of that stuff. But in terms of, like, screaming at my TV and ripping my shirt off in certain moments and all that, so, like, I don't think I'm capable of that, because I don't respect the way that the Lakers are run. I don't respect any of the people responsible for r- for running the LeBron experience into the ground.
You, you know what's so crazy though, because I've heard that and I understand that sentiment, and I think that's a shared sentiment among most of the fans. But like the Lakers had it, like they won the championship in 2020, and I was actually for all the moves they made that summer. I think that summer gets taken out of context with Dwight Howard's comments and things like that. But I think most people accepted those moves. Fine, you want to bring in Montrezl Harrell, go ahead. You want to, even the Andre Drummond experience, which I wasn't a big fan of. Fine, I love the Marcus Gasol addition. I thought trading Danny Green for Dennis Schroeder was correct. But then the Russ deal, and like I think it's fine to like back up and kind of look at the huge picture. But if you just go to like these 2 or 3 deals, really, it's the Russ deal, and then it's letting Caruso walk for nothing. Those two, like all the other stuff can be what it is. Those 2 deals right there are why you're in this position now. Like I firmly believe that. And I don't know who made those deals exactly. There's some conversation on how much that was LeBron, how much that was Rob, whatever. I don't really care. As a fan, I don't care. I care about like what the result was, and it was the wrong decision. That was the wrong decision at the time. But yeah, like you dive, it's like they had it. They had it. They had the best starting 5, in my opinion, in the league. Excuse me. They had like 4 of the 5 best like starters in the league in KCP, LeBron, um, AD, and I think like Danny Green or whoever was a part of that. It's just they had it, and they traded it all away in one summer. Really, the Russ and the Caruso thing was in the same summer. That's
Yep.
just it befuddles me, but yeah. But I understand like wanting asking for different ownership. I don't think you're ever gonna get it, so that's why it doesn't bother. I just don't think you are. Yeah, I know some people disagree with me. I never think you're getting it.
Getting them selling
Yeah, I don't think so. You might get
ever.
you get
No,
ever.
it'll happen, because, like, that, like, the way that the trust is set up, like, they kind of sort of have to sell before, because there's nobody for anybody to inherit the trust. Like, the way it's all set up is really kind of conflated. So like ever is a stretch, but even like
Okay,
I
very
think
long
is,
time.
I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. I think Guggenheim is sitting right there waiting for the opportunity. All right. Let's really quickly answer this and get you out of here. And this super comment sets Raj up for what he's wanted to do this whole time anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and play this. All right, Grape Swords writes, put some respect on JHS's name. Thanks, Raj. Dalton Connect is slept on too. I don't think he's being slept on. I think he's being overhyped. But Raj,
Yeah.
let's go ahead and give some of the season preview that you wanted to for JHS. We won't get to Vando, but we'll like
Right.
go ahead and sell me on JHS.
Okay. Shout out.
Oh shoot! I just looked up at the clock and we're way like completely out of time. That is really too bad.
All right, I have 1 minute though, just 1 minute, because I think this context is important. I try to share this, wherever I can. So I think it's really important. Laker fans aren't watching the G League, and I totally get that. And I think every time, Anthony, we draft a project, we're shocked when a project plays like a project and isn't a first rounder. And I think the whole conversation on like I can't even post a JHS workout post video without somebody mentioning Brandon Pajetsky or Jaime Jaquez. Like I think the conversation around him is because of who was drafted around him, which number one, again, is not his
Not
fault.
around him, after him. They were both
Right
taken
after him.
after
Yes.
him.
Well, okay, that's still around him, but I mean, yeah. But yeah.
Well, you make it seem as if they didn't have an opportunity to draft one of those guys. They had an
Okay.
opportunity on both and
Yes.
passed.
Yes, they did. But again, like I think the context around him is kind of within that realm. But in the G League, Anthony, again, these are G League stats, so I understand a lot of people don't take these, as much as I do, but it's still a place where basketball is being played. The rim is still 10 feet high. There's still defense being played. There's still NBA, level athletes down there. He put up 22 points, 5 assists a game on 43% on threes. And these threes, I was at most of the games he played at the South Bay, at the El Segundo Arena. These are pull-up threes. And I think these are all contingent on him being able to create space at the next level. I totally understand that. I just think like the word bust gets thrown around too easily. And Anthony, we had this whole conversation all summer about, hey, is it worth trading a 2031 first round pick? Is it worth trading a 2027, 29 first round pick? We have our 2023 first round pick on the bench. Like that's a literal first rounder that we use. I think like that's a player that it's important to like go with his development and like make that an importance of the roster. I just think like bust is too soon. 6'10 wingspan, 6'5 guard. He's not going to play the role he played in college, which is an on-ball guard. That's a 1% outcome. Those guys make 45. Actually, they make $60 million a year. That's not going to be his role in the NBA, at least as a starter. But I think like that's a guy that has to grow into a defensive role. And I feel like there's tools there. He's a good passer, not a great passer, but he's a good passer. He loves pick and roll basketball. Him and Colin had a good relationship. It's just, I think Lakers fans are too quick to just, like I'm seeing stuff like Bronny's already better than JHS. I just like, it's gotta slow down a little bit. Like I just don't think that's true yet. So, and you talked about Maxwell Lewis. I was saying way before summer league started, like you need to, people should, hold the brakes on Maxwell Lewis, and he had a really tough summer league, which I expected. But yeah, that's my thing on JHS. I just think we're too soon to call him a buzz. I don't know if he might not be an NBA player. I don't think we have the answer to that yet. So we'll see what he is next year.
No,
He
I
played
think it's too early
played
to quit
110
on
minutes
him.
last year. 110 minutes.
It's too early to quit on him. I don't think it's too early to say that drafting him was a mistake. Right? Like I think somebody can believe in him as a prospect eventually, but the Lakers shouldn't have been picking for eventually in the spot that they did. And the fact that you had two guys who went right after him, who immediately impacted the teams that they went to, makes it all the more frustrating that they made that decision in that spot. And yeah, you're right. Like they drafted a project, which was dumb, but to sit here and be impatient with said project would also be kind of dumb. My only thing is I see a lot of THT in him. So,
I mean,
like,
I think that's fair. He played 100 minutes last year. He was hurt. I think most of it. He's still. I mean, I think he's healthy now, but he was still rehabbing like in the summer. I haven't seen him. I have no idea how good he is, but I've seen him play in the G League, like when he's got consistent time, consistent minutes, and the jumper falls, and and all that stuff. But yeah, I just hope that he gets a chance. Like I thought Darvin played him in the strangest times. There was times where he'd be playing like end of first quarter when he hasn't played in 10 games. It's just like it was a very strange rotation that he had with him. So I think you're right though. Like I think it's fair to look at Hawkes and Pajemski and be like, you should have drafted them. That's totally
yeah,
fair. I think that's separate from is JHS a bust? Those are two separate
yep.
conversations.
All right. Are you good? You feel better? You got to say that?
Yeah.
You like
I wish he played summer league, man. These conversations would be so different. But since he didn't sit out, he was hurt for summer league. Like I
yeah.
have to extend these to the season.
Mhm. When you can have him again about how well he's playing in the G League because there aren't any minutes for him with this roster.
All
All
right.
right, that is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge. Thank you everybody for tuning in. 1,200 people tuned in on a Thursday, August 29th. We are all just crawling, right? Trying to get to mid-September for those like pre-camp camps, and you start hearing stuff about that, and then we get to October when you get actual camp and media day. We're all no, we're not really almost there, but we are making progress. And the good news is now we have football and baseball playoffs and everything, and fall TV and the WNBA even is ramping up as well to get us through to that glorious moment when we see JHS getting LeBron at water, getting
Oh, come
LeBron as
on.
water immediate day.
Oh,
Have
come
a good
on.
one.
That's
I'm Anthony Irwin. That is Raj Shapalu. This has been the Lakers Lounge. Please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you get your podcast. If you guys are watching live on YouTube, just scroll down, hit the subscribe button there. And then if you guys are watching live on Twitter, head on over to youtube.com/@Lakers Lounge to subscribe to the pod there as well. Big things coming here for this channel and all of our content here. So come along for the ride. Have a good one, everybody.